Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Sunday morning, and thought we would...
No Kingdom Hall meeting.
Yeah, and we've been trying to do this Ask the Elders political one for, what, a month now?
Well, a few weeks at least, but it just never keeps turning out for one reason or another.
And a couple of takes, and, yeah.
So let's just get right to Ask the Elder.
Yep. Well, first, I would like to thank Atlantis and Nevada, because of them, this disc was in the Beast. And it's funny because I brought that up to Atlantis, and he had forgotten that these were in the Beast. And he's like, oh, really? So
we're going to have some fun.
Yeah, thank you, Atlantis.
Jehovah's Witnesses are not the religious right because they're not linking up religion and politics and trying to use their influence to try to suppress others' freedoms. They recognize that we're all created as free moral agents. We have choices to make. Our choice is in adherence to God's law on the matter, and we recognize others may choose something different. Each individual and each group has to decide for themselves. But our adherence is based on what the Bible says.
All right, got to interrupt right here. Did you hear what he said? We don't suppress others' freedoms. Really? What about those that disassociate themselves? What about those that are disfellowshipped? Or what about those that are not regular meeting attenders, or those that have been publicly reproved? You do suppress the freedoms of the family members to communicate with those that have left Watchtower. So that is a political strategy right there. See, if you want to come back and have this relationship with your family, then you got to come back to Jehovah. So that is a political strategic move.
Yeah.
Despite what they say to the world inside the confines of the Kingdom Hall, they preach a very different message.
Yeah, exactly.
Jehovah's Witnesses believe that religions who commingle with politics and try to influence political elections and all of those political activities are not in harmony with what the Bible teaches on God's standards.
Well, why are they not in harmony?
Because the Bible shows that Christians would be neutral, and they have always been neutral. That was true in the first century. They maintained a neutral position. They didn't get involved in the politics of the land. They recognized that their allegiance was to God's government, to God's kingdom arrangement. And such is the case among Jehovah's Witnesses today.
Now, like Evie's video that we watched this morning, where she was happy over what Stephen Lett said, and it's like, yeah, they're making our job easier. She's absolutely right.
Oh, yeah.
Love that video, Evie.
Yeah, the more these guys talk, the more they put themselves in the public eye. Like political candidates, the more foolish they make themselves to be.
Yes. Now, he's talking about their neutrality and, don't mix with politics and stuff, and this is where I have an issue. Now, I know many XJWs have done hundreds of videos and blogs and everything about their affiliation with the UN and the NGOs. And I don't know if anybody has covered this information yet, but a friend of ours, and I want to thank Roger, thank you very much for sending me this information, because even though it's like beating a dead horse with them being the NGO members, we happened to have come across a website the other day, and they were defending Watchtower. It was a pro-JW website, and they were saying...
Remember the name of that?
Oh, what the heck was the name of that? I don't remember the name.
I don't remember either.
But it was defending and saying that it was a lie, that it was apostate propaganda, and they were totally, saying that it was not true. They were a different NGO member than the normal NGO member.
Yeah.
So like I said, I want to thank Roger for this information. He says, please see the article, Their Refuge, a Lie, in the June 1st, 1991 Watchtower, paying special attention to paragraphs 1, 10, and 11. So I just happen to have that article. Like it says, it's the 91 Watchtower, June 1st, pages 15 to 20, Their refuge is a lie. And in paragraph 1, do those words apply to Christendom today? Well, they quoted the scripture at Isaiah 28:15. And do those words apply to Christendom today as they did to the ancient two-tribe kingdom of Judah? Surely they do. And that parallel bodes ill for modern-day Christendom. It means that catastrophe will soon overtake that apostate religious organization.
So, just in case you're not aware of what Isaiah 28:15 says.
Sorry, I forgot to read that.
Yeah, it says, we have made a lie our refuge, and in falsehood we have concealed ourselves.
Yeah. And I find this hilarious because it's again the pot calling the kettle black. So then, like Roger suggests, we go to paragraph 10. And of course, it's talking about Christendom. However, she has not done so. Instead, in her quest for peace and security, she insinuates herself into the favor of the political leaders of the nations. Just like this elder is talking about. You know, witnesses don't mix with politics. Oh, really? Okay. This, despite the Bible's warning that friendship with the world is enmity with God, James 4:4. Moreover, in 1919, she strongly advocated the League of Nations as man's best hope for peace. Since 1945, she has put her hope in the United Nations. How extensive is her involvement with this organization? Paragraph 11. A recent book, they don't give the name. There's a... Yeah.
The book is called New Genesis.
Yes. Yes. Because Roger found it.
Roger found it, yes.
He has given, because he found this quote. So in this recent book, they quote, no less than 24 Catholic organizations are represented at the UN. Several of the world's religious leaders have visited the international organization. Most memorable were the visits of His Holiness Pope Paul VI during the General Assembly in 1965 and of Pope John Paul II in 1979. Many religions have special invocations, prayers, hymns, and services for the United Nations. The most important example are those of the Catholic, the Unitarian Universalists, the Baptists, and the Baha'i faiths. Now, this book that they're quoting from, like I said, Roger has sent me a copy of the pages. It is called The New Genesis by Robert Mueller. Now, over here on chapter 6, Prayer and Meditation at the United Nations. And this is where the quote is taken from that is in this Watchtower article. Sure enough, all major world religions are accredited to the United Nations as non-governmental organizations. Funny how Watchtower left that part out.
Yeah, isn't it?
For example, no less than 24 Catholic organizations are represented at the UN. Several of the world's religious leaders have visited the international organization. And of course, like, the rest of the quote is what is exactly was in the Watchtower. But it's just interesting they left out the part how they're non-governmental organizations. You know, they're with that. Let's see. I was going to see here. Okay, so we read the New Genesis. Yeah. So for those of you who believe that this is apostate propaganda and stuff, all you have to do is just ask, because this is all in the Beast. I have all of these documents, and many XJWs have these documents as well. Letters from the United Nations saying that yes, maybe I'll just read this since maybe some new ones that don't have these letters yet. Okay, this is from the United Nations, and it is dated March 18th, 2002. It's Dear Mr., and then the name's whited out. In reply to your letter dated 19 February 2002, please be informed of the following. The Watchtower Bible Tract Society of New York Incorporated, an NGO, had been associated with the DPI since 1992 and requested to terminate its association in 2001. But I should point out that they are still NGO members in Europe.
Right.
Yes. The request was granted on October 9th, 2001. According to the website www.watchtower.org, the organization is a legal organization in use by Jehovah's Witnesses. The United Nations does not force or trick any NGO to be associated with DPI. The criteria for association for NGOs has not changed since 1991. We are also attaching a copy of response from our office to inquiries about the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. And like I said, there is several of these. And I wanted to mention, though, about the letter that Watchtower sent out to branches and congregations that asked about their association, as NGO members. And this is the world headquarters of Jehovah's Witnesses in Brooklyn. And this is dated November 1st, 2001. Branch Committee. Dear brothers, because of published allegations by opposers that we have secret links with the United Nations, a number of branches have inquired about the matter, and we have replied. This circular letter replaces any replies we have given earlier and is sent to all branches. To anyone inquiring within your branch territory, you might respond according to what is stated below. So they're telling the elders and COs how to answer.
Exactly.
Our purpose for registering with the Department of Public Information as a non-governmental organization, NGO, in 1991 was to have access to research material available on health, ecological, and social problems at the United Nations library facilities. I can go to their library. I don't need to be a member. We had been using the library for many years prior to 1991, but in that year it became necessary to register as an NGO to have continued access.
Lie.
Registration papers filed with the United Nations that we have on file contain no statements that conflict with our Christian beliefs. Moreover, NGOs are informed by the United Nations that association of NGOs with the DPI does not constitute their incorporation into the United Nations system. This is the typical cover-your-ass lie.
Oh, yeah.
Nor does it entitle associated organizations or their staff to any kind of privilege, immunities, or special status. Still, the criteria for association of NGOs, at least in their latest version, remember, the UN said they hadn't changed since 1991.
Right.
Contain language that we cannot subscribe to. When we realized this, we immediately withdrew our registration. We are grateful that this matter was brought to our attention.
Lie. See, that's a political statement, if I ever heard one.
Yes. And I have another letter from the United Nations here. I know, this is for ones who don't know about this. October 11th, 2001, to whom it may concern. Recently, the NGO section had been receiving numerous inquiries regarding the association of the Watchtower Bible Tract Society of New York with the Department of Public Information, DPI. This organization applied for association with DPI in 1991 and was granted association in 1992. So right after they wrote that article in the Watchtower that we just read at the beginning of this section, that's when they applied. By accepting association with DPI, the organization agreed to meet criteria for association, including support and respect of the principles of the Charter of the United Nations and commitment and means to conduct effective information program with its constituents and to a broader audience about UN activities. And then it says that they requested their termination in October 2001. Oh my goodness. Now I also have a letter from the DPI, and I'm not going to read all of that, but just basically says the same thing, how they became members in 1991. Applied in 1991, was granted association in 1992. Now they requested termination So like I said, if anybody wants all of this, I have a file about this thick, and I've got it all uploaded to my Dropbox, about this, so what this elder is saying.
It's a lie.
Yeah.
All right, is there any more from these knuckleheads?
Oh, yeah, there's more.
We don't vote as well because, as we understand, the scriptures teach us to be no part of the world, meaning that we don't devote our efforts to political solutions. We understand these solutions, even at best, could only be temporary. We prefer to give our energies and our time to a solution that we understand will be permanent.
Okay, you heard him. We don't vote. From the 1999 November 1st Watchtower, pages 28 and 29, question from readers: how do Jehovah's Witnesses view voting? Second paragraph, halfway through. As to whether they will personally vote for someone running in an election, each one of Jehovah's Witnesses makes a decision based on his Bible-trained conscience and an understanding of his responsibility to God and to the state. In making this personal decision, the witness considers a number of factors, and then they go on and dictate what your conscience should be. So here again, here's another political movement. In public, they say, oh, we don't get involved, we don't vote, but yet inside the congregation, the Jehovah's Witnesses now have the right to vote their conscience in any type of political election. So why did Watchtower do this? Well, it just stands to reason that they may have been seeking some sort of legal recognition in a country that says, wait a minute, we'll only grant you legal recognition if you allow your members to participate in political elections. See? But here's the problem. In Malawi, they couldn't sign a political party card, so many Jehovah's Witnesses were brutally beaten, murdered, sisters, women were raped because they had to remain politically neutral. But now it's a conscience matter. So why has God changed his mind? Why has God changed his viewpoint about being politically neutral? You see, Jehovah's Witnesses, you have to start thinking critically. Now, at the end of all of this, I'm going to use an illustration because I know what some Jehovah's Witnesses are thinking. Oh, that's old information. We don't need to be looking at that old information. We need to be looking ahead. We need to be moving ahead with Jehovah's celestial chariot. But I'm going to use an illustration at the end of all of this. So, you got anything you want to say? Or do you want to hear more of this BS?
I just want to say that as witnesses, 49 years for me, I never heard a talk where it said what was in that magazine, that it was a conscience matter, that voting, anything about voting. We were always taught witnesses do not vote. They do not get involved in political matters. If I would have known they joined the UN back in 1991, I would have been out of there right then and there.
Yeah.
So.
Jehovah's Witnesses are not proactive in the sense of pushing a social or religious agenda. We have no desire to obligate everyone to believe exactly as we do or to conform their actions exactly to what we feel they should be. Rather, we feel that the liberties procured allows everyone to make their own choice and to lead their life the way they want to lead it. And it doesn't disturb us. In fact, it's beneficial. It's good that people have the right to make these choices.
Not proactive? Well, yes. This is where it's extremely misleading for John Q. Public, the non-Jehovah Witness. Okay? They appear they don't get active in the political entities of the world, but this is the Jehovah Witness mindset, okay? When you become a Jehovah Witness, you accept their rendition of truth that they have a government, they have their own judicial system, they have their own school, it's the Theocratic Ministry School, and they are taught how to be active in the door-to-door ministry work and Bible education work as they perceive it. Here's the problem. As a governmental entity itself, the Watchtower Bible Tract Society, when they go to your door and they offer their Awaken Watchtower magazine, and if you don't accept it, in the Kingdom Hall, in their minds, they're instilling this perception of fact, that if you don't become a Jehovah's Witness, you will die at Armageddon. Okay? If you don't accept their theology, God is going to kill you. Simple as that. So when they say they're not proactive in the politics of the world, they are very much proactive in their own politics. Very easily perceived once you get into the organization and hear these talks given from the platform. I know. I've heard it for 42 years. We used to go from door to door. We even said this in a real recent video. You know, if we face an opposer or a contender, you know, you walk out to the car and say, you know, he has a nice house. I hope Jehovah saves this during Armageddon so that I can have it when we're in the new system, because they'll all be dead.
Yeah. Well, we've even had some we believe to be current Jehovah's Witnesses make comments under our videos and says, I can't wait till Jehovah destroys you apostates at Armageddon. So what does that tell you of what they believe?
That's a political statement. Simple as that.
I had a friend. Her mom actually told her, you know, if you don't come back to Jehovah's organization, Jehovah has a special death waiting for those of you who know the truth and left it and don't come back. You know, look at Anthony Morris, his human hot dogs.
Yeah.
You know, his talk about that, of how they were going to look at Armageddon when God kills them.
So what's well scripted in front of somebody asking what Jehovah's Witnesses believe is very well put across, but when you talk to those that have left the Watchtower and Bible Tract Society, it's a very different message, and that's why Watchtower cannot survive the internet age, because there's a whole group of people saying, wait a minute, this is not what Jehovah's Witnesses teach. When you go from door to door and you're telling a Catholic that if you don't convert to Jehovah's Witness, I should say Jehovah's Witness-ism, you will die, you're making a very strong political statement. It may not be the politics of the world, but it's a religious political issue.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention in the happy hour we were doing last night when we were talking about Matt and those sisters coming to his door, I forgot to mention that, you know, she kept saying, you're an apostate. He's like, you know, first of all, what is an apostate and how can I be an apostate when I've never been a witness? But, you know, if this is how Jehovah's Witnesses are talking to people at the door, face to face, and saying, you're an apostate, and getting very defensive and very, you know, pushy and obnoxious, and you're an apostate, you know, and had this horrible, you know, scrunched up face, it's like, wow, you know.
Well, there again, Jehovah's Witnesses cannot survive the internet age.
Yeah.
Simple as that, because too much is being exposed on every level conceivable, even through this series of Asking the Elders.
Oh,
you know, when you've been a Jehovah's Witness and you can hear now what is cult speech, they tell a very different story in front of the public than what they tell behind closed doors.
Yeah, exactly.
Jehovah's Witnesses are not politically neutral. They may appear to be, but they're not.
Well, just the fact when you go to the door and you've got a magazine saying, you know, that God's kingdom is going to destroy all governments on the earth and kill all the wicked people. When you've got that magazine in your hand, that is not being neutral.
Right.
and he mentioned, oh, well, we allow, people to believe what they want. Yeah, but you're saying they're going to die at Armageddon.
Right, if they don't believe the way you do. Exactly. So, are we almost done with these idiots?
Oh, I think we got a little bit more.
Oh, no. Boy, I'm so glad that you and I are willing to take a bullet. This is a political statement that Kim and I are making.
Yes, and we're rebelling against the glorious ones.
Yes.
At times, religious institutions will endeavor to have the belief system that they have incorporated into law in one way or the other. A law banning abortion or a law banning gay marriage. Those beliefs are religious beliefs, and Jehovah's Witnesses feel very strongly on both of those subjects. But we believe the scriptures state that we should not be part of a political system, but rather separate from these systems. This obligates us to be politically neutral.
But within the congregation, ours is a spiritual protection. When we're talking about physical protection, that's up to the secular authorities to provide.
It states in paragraph 3, there is a time to keep quiet when your words should prove to be few. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Joe, object to that. This is a violation of the First Amendment, freedom of religion, freedom of association.
So we put Richard Ash's deposition in there because they may not do anything to fight to get their doctrines into law, but they sure as heck use the present ones to their advantage and to cover their asses, when it comes to child abuse.
Well, that's true. When you really look at everything that us apostates are doing in the internet, on Facebook and everything else, we're really exposing the wolf in sheep's clothing. But I want to read John 10, verses 11 through 15. Now, this is Christ speaking. Now, keep in mind, Watchtower continuously tells its members that, they are the true religion. They have God's blessings. They are the shepherds. Even elders are called the shepherds of the congregation. And the more Watchtower is getting their shepherds hauled into these courts, the more their lies and their true nature is being exposed. But this set of scriptures, in my opinion, really puts it nicely, because it really identifies what's going on. Verse 11, this is actually Christ speaking. He says, I am the fine shepherd. The fine shepherd surrenders his soul in behalf of the sheep. Now, are these elders surrendering their souls to protect the sheep, or are they lying to cover their own backside? It's a question you can ask yourself.
Well, just like in that court deposition that we just showed of Richard Ash, he says it's up to the secular authorities to protect members of the congregation. But yet, they're telling their congregation members to keep quiet. And even in the elders' letters, they're telling elders to keep these confidential matters quiet. Do not discuss them with anybody. Even if you get a subpoena from the court, do not reveal any of this information.
Right. And we also heard the one, well, actually, I don't know if it was in this. We actually listened to 2 clips before putting this one up. I don't know if it was this one, if it was in the Cantus Conti case, the Nightline. But we heard one of the lawyers say that it's up to the parents to protect the children. Now, if Watchtower, a.k.a. the elders, are the shepherds, then wouldn't the shepherds be protecting the sheep? Let me go on with this. Verse 11. The hired man, who is no shepherd, and to whom the sheep do not belong as his own, beholds the wolf coming and abandons the sheep and flees. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them, because he is a hired man and does not care for the sheep.
Yeah, it sounds like them.
See, when the real wolf starts coming, the hired man scatters. The hired man will lie to protect himself. The hired man will do nothing to protect the sheep, because that's all he is. He's a hired man. Verse 14, Christ continues on and says, I am the fine shepherd, and I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I surrender my soul in behalf of the sheep. When's the last time you've seen an elder get in court and is asked a question and say, yes, we do have a two-witness rule, and yes, because of the way we view that two-witness rule, it does provide anonymity, if that's the right word, to pedophiles. You won't hear that, because they're nothing but a hired man. They will not surrender the lie for the truth.
Well, I can't even comprehend Jesus Christ sitting in a courtroom and saying, oh, well, yes, we know there's a pedophile problem in our organization, but it's up to the parents to protect their children and the secular authorities. I can't imagine him just sitting by just to keep his position and lying, to do that.
Yes. But these men, it is being proved all the time that these men, these so-called shepherds, are abandoning the flock. Okay? So, Jehovah's Witnesses, here's another scripture that you should really be familiar with. Hebrews 5:14. But solid food belongs to mature people, to those who through use have their perceptive powers trained to distinguish both right and wrong. When your shepherds are in these courtrooms making political moves,
Doing
right,
what Watchtower tells them to.
That's a political move. Then you're not having your perceptive powers trained to distinguish what's right and wrong. You're not taking in solid food. Here is a piece of solid food, Jehovah's Witnesses. If you honestly believe that God is blessing and protecting your organization through lies, then you don't know God. And that's solid food, people. Jehovah's Witnesses, that is solid food. If you honestly believe, if you can convince yourself that God can bless this, you don't know God.
I think we've got just a little bit left.
Yeah, and then I want to get to my illustration.
Yes.
So if, for example, an abortion clinic were established in close proximity to a Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses, you would never see a rally of Jehovah's Witnesses to have the abortion clinic shut down. Or you would never see an effort on the part of Jehovah's Witnesses in writing to the local mayor to have the abortion clinic moved to another location in town. We simply believe that even as we have the right to have our religious beliefs and to talk to our neighbors about them, others enjoy the same right. We are deeply concerned about the fact that everybody should enjoy the constitutional rights that we've procured. Every individual has a right to decide what they're going to do with their life, whether they're going to live one lifestyle or another lifestyle, whether they're going to embrace one religious belief or another set of religious beliefs. And we firmly believe that everybody should be allowed to make that decision and to be able to abide by it and to live by it.
Yeah, this is funny. It's like we think everyone should enjoy the Constitution rights we've procured. The arrogance.
Really? Very, very arrogant, isn't it?
Yeah, we think everyone has the right to believe the way they want to, but yet you've got sisters in a worldly man's faith. You're an apostate.
Yeah.
They sure don't believe he has the right to believe the way he wants.
Yeah.
Or to even ask questions.
How the tide has turned, huh?
Wow.
Are you finished?
I guess so. Give your
Okay.
illustration.
You know, when Kim and I were Jehovah's Witnesses, we heard quite often, you know, you want to keep moving ahead with Jehovah's celestial chariot. Are you keeping up with the chariot that Ezekiel saw in vision? And, you know, to a certain extent, that is true. We always do want to keep goals in front of us. We always do want to keep moving ahead. But the thing about moving ahead is that you have to know where you came from, so that as you're moving ahead, you never lose sight of where you come from, because you just might have to backtrack just a little bit. You know, one of the greatest things that my dad had ever given me was his old Boy Scout compass. This is actually an antique, and yes, it still does work. But, you know, the thing about a compass, you know, obviously a compass is designed to keep you aware of where you're going as you're moving forward. But the thing about a compass that a lot of people don't realize is that it has the needle pointing to where you came from. Now, being a woodsman myself, I don't use a compass because I've trained my perceptive powers to realize that as I'm moving forward, I want to take a look of what's behind me, because if I have to backtrack, I need to view something that's familiar. So basically, I build this mental map inside of my head, so that if I do get turned around, I can backtrack a little bit. Oh, that's familiar. I do recognize that. That was my point of reference 2 hours ago as I was moving forward. Watchtower does not want the current Jehovah's Witness looking back at old information. That's why they're discarding it. That's why on their CD-ROMs they only go down to 2000. It would
the
depend on
JW.org their literature goes back to around 2000.
Yeah, so in essence, they're really not wanting you to backtrack, because when you backtrack, then you realize that you've been fed a bucket of shit. See? And that's why it is important. That's why a compass has a return needle, which is on the opposite end. Now, the funny thing, the interesting thing about Ezekiel's vision of this celestial chariot that Watchtower never, ever, ever mentions is the wheels. The wheels can go in any direction. It's got eyes on all four rims as Watchtower pictured it. That celestial chariot has the option of going backwards also. But Watchtower never ever focuses on that. They want the Jehovah's Witness to go forward, to go forward, to go forward. If you're always moving forward, how can you train your perceptive powers to see where you've come from if you ever have to backtrack?
Well, like that scripture that you had mentioned, I believe, in one of our other videos. You know, keep testing that you're in the faith.
How can you ever test if you're still in the faith if you never look back? See, this whole new light thing is actually designed, Jehovah's Witnesses, to keep you lost. Think about it, Jehovah's Witnesses. How can you train your perceptive powers if you just keep looking at the light? Looking, I'm going forward, I'm going forward. I'm keeping up with Jehovah's celestial chariot. But yet, decades ago, they come out with a brochure, with a booklet, God's Law, Blood and Medicine and God's Law. In that booklet, I've said this before, but it bears repeating. blood fractions was against Watchtower policy. Blood fractions was part of God's law. Thousands upon thousands of Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide lost their lives because they couldn't accept a blood fraction. Today, you can accept blood fractions. Have you trained your perceptive powers to see, to determine that one of those statements is a lie? See, unless you have a compass that points where you came from, then you'll never ever be able to recognize, again, you're being fed a bucket of shit.
Well, that just reminds me of illustration. Here in the Southwest, many of you know, we have a rattlesnake.
Yeah. Yo, especially me at work.
And the thing is as a child, I was taught, watch the ground and where you're walking in front of you. Okay, so you've got Mount Zion, with the governing body and Watchtower organization up on this mountain, and you're walking through woods, and you're looking at the mountain, this celestial chariot. You're watching and looking. You're not looking at the ground, at the hazards that are there.
Right.
A gopher hole. You could step in a hole, trip over a stick. Rattlesnakes all over the place. So are you aware of what's in the ground in front of you? These truths, these facts, checking things out, making sure it's okay. And you're just concentrating on that, and you're not seeing the dangers that you're in.
Well, that reminds me of another illustration.
Oh, we're just full of illustrations today, aren't we?
Yes, living here in the Southwest, like Kim says, you do have to train a certain aspect of your perceptive powers. Out here we have what they call a cicada, which is actually a locust. This cicada at 100 degrees will start buzzing. If you're not familiar with that buzz, you could very easily interpret it as a rattlesnake buzzing, or vice versa. If you're walking along and you're hearing a rattlesnake buzz, and you think, oh, I don't have to worry, that's just a cicada, and you step on that rattlesnake and get bit. So you have to learn, Jehovah's Witnesses. You have to train your perceptive powers to distinguish between what's right and wrong. When Watchtower is now using First Amendment rights to protect their religious right to practice religion however they want, even if it includes hiding and protecting pedophiles,
having their own judicial system,
that's not right. That's wrong. When a elder gets in court and says, well, it's up to the parents to protect their own children. We have provided lots and lots of material through the Watchtower and Awake on helping parents to protect their children. Fine and dandy. I think that's an admirable thing. But now when the Jehovah Witness parent goes up to an elder and says, hey, brother so-and-so has molested my child. Well, shh. You need to keep that quiet. If you take this to the police, we're going to disfellowship you. How is that perceptive power to distinguish between right and wrong properly trained? It's not. What they're trying to do is they're trying to get you to keep your mouth shut so that you don't bring any dishonor to the congregation or to the name Jehovah.
Don't want to bring reproach to Jehovah's
Don't
name.
want to bring reproach. And then they use a threatening tactic of disfellowshipping to keep you silent. Can't you see that that's nothing but a political move? See, just like Bill Clinton didn't want it public knowledge what was going on between him and his intern. You keep your mouth shut, but it still came out.
Yeah. So, thank God that one is over on politics.
Yeah.
And I just want to mention, this is our compass right here.
The Bible. And
this is our compass.
yeah, it's, whether you believe in the Bible or not, there is still some practical wisdom in there. If you're a religious person and you're viewing your elders or your priests as your spiritual shepherds. And then when they're in court and it appears that they're abandoning you, well, that's exactly what Christ said, that they will abandon the sheep. And that's what Watchtower's doing. Yeah. They're allowing the wolf to come in and scatter the sheep. And that's why Watchtower's losing members at an unprecedented rate. Because the shepherds are not there to truly protect the flock. How do you think David felt when there was a bear coming in? Do you think David was scared? Do you think maybe David would have thought, wow, you know, this bear could kill me? But no, David was willing to stand up to the bear. David was willing to do what was necessary to dispatch the bear. He was willing to do what was willing to protect his sheep. But these elders are not. They're lying in court. So.
No. It appears they're not doing anything to protect. You know, they don't even warn parents in a congregation if they have a known pedophile in their congregation. Yeah. They will not warn them.
And you know, and just like Evie's video we watched this morning, all you have to do is watch the facial expressions on Let when he gave that talk. It just, you can just read the man's face and see that he's lying through his teeth.
Yep,
so,
exactly.
Train your perceptive powers, Jehovah's Witnesses, because everything you need to identify the false shepherd is right in front of you.
Yep, exactly. So, you all have a great day, and hopefully our internet will stay on long enough that we can get this uploaded.
Well, not this, but the other two, right?
Yes.
Thank you for watching, everybody. Thank you for indulging us. Thank you for having us in your home.
And thank you for all the wonderful comments.
Yes, yeah. You know, there again, Kim and I don't ever want to forget that if it wasn't for the community support, their efforts in wanting to research things that have long been lost, there would not be any Mike and Kim YouTube channel or any other YouTube channel. Evie Brooklyn, Jerry Jones, Dally Wally, my goodness, Screw Generation. Yeah, we're
Mark Cora.
Still waiting for you to come back, Screw Generation. So really, Watchtower sees the handwriting on the wall. Meanie, meanie, Tickle Parson. You're done, Watchtower. It's just a matter of time. Yeah. It's, you know, like Evie used in her illustration of the hourglass. Time is running out. Yeah. It truly, truly is.
Yep, exactly. So, have a great weekend.